All right, the Dvar Malchut, Parshat Mishpatim, 1992. Tavshin Nun Beit, famous speech that the Rebbe gave. This speech was very shortly after America and Russia, they met together and they decided that they were going to stop developing atomic warfare, and they were going to put the money and the energy into productive things. They met in the United Nations. The whole United Nations agreed, and it was really serious. Everybody was genuinely, how do you say, devoted and given over to this goal of world peace. It was amazing. And the Rebbe gave a whole speech about it. Okay, since then, things, of course, have deteriorated, but the fact is that good things never stop. Good things never stop. Bad things definitely do. If a person does sins in his life, his whole life did sins, but if he just says, I'm sorry, God, I didn't mean it, and he was genuine, and he genuinely repents, so God forgives him. I mean, I don't know how God does things like that, but anyway, that's what he does. God is basically very, very forgiving. So even if your whole entire life, you were an idolater, or you whatever it is, so, and then in the end, you say, listen, I'm sorry. I mean, of course, it depends what it is. You can't go around killing people and then the last minute say, I'm sorry, and, get absolved. But, and so all the exact workings of it, how exactly it works, I don't know. But, I mean, I'll just say one general thing. The Rambam, Maimonides, says that God judges a person according to good and bad deeds that he does. And according to that, you go to heaven, you go to hell. But the Rambam says, Maimonides, Moses ben Maimon, he said, but only God knows how to measure what's good and what's bad. And as we know in general what's good and what's bad. Of course we know what's good and what's bad. But it could be that a person did one good deed and that outweighs all the bad that he did in his life. And it could be that a person does one bad deed and it outweighs all the good that he did in his life. So what are we supposed to do? Only God knows. So the answer is do good. Just do as much good as you can and forget about it. And it's not by accident that in the whole 5 books of Moses, it doesn't mention heaven or hell as a motivation at all. Doesn't mention it. Doesn't say if you don't do what I say, you're going to burn in hell forever. It doesn't say anything like that. You will be cursed. You will be this. And even though it definitely is a part of Judaism, we definitely do believe in heaven and hell, but it is not stressed at all, and especially in Hasidic Judaism, not stressed. Very, very, very small, right? 0.001% of all the teachings are about heaven and hell. So why? Because bad things don't last. All the pain and suffering, etc., of the world, good things do last. So the fact that everyone could come together, all the nations of the world, and they all decided to make peace, and they were all sincere. That was the whole point. They were genuinely sincere. It wasn't some sort of a trick. Everybody checked everybody else out totally, and they met. And they thought, and these were, big high officials, and they knew how to judge people. In any case, so they made this. So it's a sign that it definitely is possible, and not only is it possible, but according to Judaism, this is going to be. This will be. And it comes from the basic value of life and the basic value of humanity. And that every human being is precious and unique. And you can't write off people. That was the big thing of the Nazis, right? That they were killing their own people before they were killing Jews and gypsies or whatever. They were killing their own people. Anybody who was a little bit, infirm, old, couldn't be used for society, didn't make any difference if everybody loves grandma or grandpa. What can he do? What can he build something? Especially people that had a little mentally impaired. They weren't like everybody else. They were different. That killed them. had big genocide centers. Incredibly callous, unhuman way of looking at the world. Disgusting. I shudder to think about it. Okay, so this is the Rebbe's speech. Okay, you do it. It's known. Shekol Amor said everything that happens in the world. One second. Yes. You do. It's known. Shekol Amor Olam, that all the things that happen in the world, they are directed by God. Okay, here's a very, very basic thing. Judaism, especially Hasidic Judaism, it's called hashkacha pratit. Hashkacha means direction, observance, pratit, individual. That God directs everything that happens in the world. Everything, every little heartbeat of every flea is directed by God. And everything in the world, every detail in the world is interconnected with everything else in the world. I mean, we have understanding about this. This makes no sense. Why would God be interested in the heartbeat of a flea? Fleas have hearts? I don't know. I guess they must have some. Why would he possibly do a thing like that? Why? So the answer is that God is not you or me. And God is something totally different than that he creates all these fleas and they all have circulatory systems with hearts beating. That's nothing for God. That's small change. For us, we can't create one leg of a flea. We can't create nothing. If a flea dies, we can't bring it back to life. We can't do anything. What can we do? And God creates all these fleas, keeps them all alive. That's not to mention all the beetles and all the worms and all of this, right? And all the molecules with the atoms, with the planet. And then there's the planets, and it could be there's life on other planets. And God keeps everything going all the time, every single minute, which comes to show you that if you think God is anything like you, so you're totally wrong. On the other hand, God cares. And he cares about me and he cares about you. And God created us in his image. So not only this static world, God created it 5,000 or 5 billion, whatever years ago, and it just floats along, right? That's not so. I mean, the fact of the matter is that God created the world exactly 5,782 and whatever half years ago. Exactly. That's what he created it. What difference does it make? Makes a big difference. Not important now. But the fact that even more important is that he's creating everything right now. He's creating everything every instant. That's when he began the creation. Before that, there was nothing. Now there's something. Now we can give God pleasure. God didn't have that before. This is not understandable, but that's the fact. Here we are. And either we can say we're here from spontaneous generation or whatever it is, a black hole, or from God. You can take your choice, whatever you want to. The Torah and Jewish people, intelligent people, devoted people, sincere people have been giving their lives for this idea that God is creating the world since Abraham. So here we have another one. Here, listen to this. You want to see God? There's no place where God is more revealed than the interaction between things in the world. What happens in the world? Every wind that blows, the breeze that comes, every water, when the water flies, every drop of rain, everything that happens in the world, what every people do, everything is all hashkacha pratis. Nevertheless, there's good, there's bad. Incredible world. Everything that happens in the world, especially when there happens big, major things in the world that have an effect on all mankind, because the whole world is created for man. Man is the most important in the world. What we do, what man does, is very important to God. That's the whole name of the game. What man does. God created the world so that man would do the right thing and give God pleasure, make the whole world harmonious. So therefore, when anything that happens in the world is very exact, hashkacha pratis, it's all because God wants it to happen, and it's all interacting, it's interrelated with everything else that happens in the world. So therefore, it must be that from everything that happens in the world, we can learn about how to serve the Creator. But that's the whole purpose of the whole business. How much more so in everything that happens, big things that happen in the world. The Ikrim Koshim al Medinas Gedolos v'Chashuvos, important things that happen in the world, and then in them is found the main number of the Jewish people and of the Jewish people in this time of exile. Here the Rebbe is going to say that in America and in Russia, that it could be that in Russia itself, there's more Jews in Russia than the whole world put together. But they just don't even know they're Jewish, because in Russia, 70 years of communism, there was no Jewish education. There was absolutely no reason for a Jew to hold on to his Jewish identity, but they did. But they held it on either secretly or super secretly. They didn't tell their children, so the children themselves didn't know they're Jewish. The Rebbe said there could be more Jews in Russia than the whole world put together, but they don't know, the people don't know they're Jewish, and the mother didn't, and the grandmother didn't know that she was Jewish. But the fact of the matter is that a person whose mother is Jewish, how does a mother know she is Jewish? If her mother was Jewish, how did her mother know she was Jewish? Because her mother was Jewish, and that's what's been passed down for 3,300 years. Now in Israel, they're trying to change it. They're always trying to change it in Israel. Israel is the how does Rebbe say? They saved the house and they kicked out the owner. They're trying to change it, but it won't. God will save it, but it's self-sacrifice. Bali, Ashpa, Maniguz, especially the countries where the most Jews are, that's the countries that have the most effect on the world. Shagam Limud Ahora, we can certainly learn something, a very, very general lesson to me and you. The Rebbe is not coming to analyze world activities, world news. Not coming to analyze it. The Rebbe is trying to tell us what we can learn from it in order to serve God better. First of all, what happened on this Friday? What happened? That they're gathered together, all of the heads of all of the main countries in the world, especially the two main countries, Moatzas Gadol is America and Russia. And they announced Al Takufa Chadasha on a new. Now this is after this perestroika, right? This is in the time when Gorbachev suddenly dissolved all of communism. The new time in the countries of the world. Bittul Matzav Shel Milchama. There's not going to be any more wars between the countries of the world. And this means that there's going to be a limitation in weapons of war. That there would be peace and there would be achdus, there would be partnership. The shituf pu'ula ve'ezra dadit, and they would help one another between all the countries in the world for the benefit of all mankind. And before this, there was an announcement of the President of the United States to the whole entire nation, B'or Yom Revi on Friday, Kami Shabta, on the day before, on Friday, Hatchalat Erev, that the beginning of this meeting that's going to be on Shabbat, that the President of the United States, if I'm not mistaken, it was Reagan back then. I have to look it up. He announced that on Friday everybody's going to meet together and that they were going to start reducing weapons of war. They were going to use the money in order to improve the economies of the world. This was ratified. That was certified by the Senate and the House of Representatives. That there are the laws are made for the country. Shem Tokef Al Pi Torah, that they have also the effect of the Torah. Dina de Malchut Dina. The law is that when Jews go to a country, that they have to observe all of the laws of the country that don't contradict the Torah, of course. But anything that does not contradict the Torah, they have to do. We can think, let us think about all the details of this meeting of all of the nations in the United Nations, the place of it, and the timing as far as the Torah, Parshat Shavua, etc. Okay, like I said, the world since then has descended into confusion. The reason for it is not important. But the fact is that everybody genuinely could get together for the sake of peace and for the sake of unity, and just as an innuendo, one of the main aspects of this was that there wouldn't be any sort of a unified world government or rulership. There wouldn't be any attempt at dissolving the differences between the different nationalities and people and races. Exactly the opposite. To stress the uniqueness of every single nationality and every single race, to bring out the good, the irreplaceability of every human being, and in specific, and then every race and every this, all these the things that are in the world, they're all beneficial, and that was the whole ideal of the United Nations, was to unite all the nations, not to make one big nation. What can we learn from this is, in a general way, is to bring to the days of the Moshiach. Man cannot rule the world or bring peace or benefit to the world according to his own intellect. Again, I know I've said it a lot of times, but the Rebbe stressed it. I don't think there's ever been a nation which was so developed and progressive, cultured as Nazi Germany. And a close second, maybe even a first, it was Imperial Japan. Imperial Japan, the weaponry that they had, the things that Japan did to China are incomparably atrocious to the things that the Nazis did to everybody. The Japanese were no less cruel and enthusiastic about killing, murdering, right? Nanking, and that everyone was going to get together now, and that they're all going to really make peace. This has to be under God. It has to be from a power which is above everyone. Because if man just relies on himself, so eventually it'll descend into the chaos that was World War II, and the chaos that there's certain powers that want to bring now into the world. To bring to the days of the Moshiach, Mia Yehudim, the Geula Amitit Vashlema, from one of the goals of the future redemption by means of the Moshiach regarding the conduct of the Ummah Olam, of the nations, it says, it's a prophecy from Isaiah. It says, Vekitatu, Isaiah 2. It says, Vekitatu, Charboteim, that they will, forge their swords into plows, and their shields will be the meziros, to whatever is to musical instruments, something like that. Or no, meziros, not musical instruments. To what is it? To harvesting things, whatever. Zomer eats him to goy el goy. It says that nation will not lift up against nation its sword, and they won't learn war anymore. I think there's a opera or something by Handel who uses these words. This will be by means of the Mashiach himself. One of the big accomplishments of Mashiach is peace in the world, harmony. Like it says in the beginning of the Pasuk, V'shafat bein hagoyim, and that the Mashiach will judge between nations, v'ochiach l'amim rabim, and he will teach, he will, reprove, chastise verbally many, many nations. Hashofet, this judge, will be the Mashiach. He will be the king of all the worlds. He will give a, reproof, teaching, chastisement. There's other words for it. I can't think now. But he'll tell everybody what's wrong with them. But Yomer Lamishi Yimsa Ba'ovelan, he'll tell everybody that has any sort of a sin, Yashar Mavo, to make himself straighten the crookedness. Mashiach is not going to come to send all the non-believers into hell, and he's not going to do that. He's going to teach everybody how good it is to serve the Creator. Because of this, Lotia Milchama, there won't be any more nations, because God will make peace between all of them. That's what Isaiah is talking about. They won't need any weapons of war. They'll forge them all into weapons, into instruments of construction, of plowing, agriculture. That's what's going to be in the Ba'achrit Yomim. Nachon Yeh Har Beit Hashem says will be set firm, the mountain of the house of God, and everyone, all the nations will run to it, and they will say, L'chu v'nalel Har Hashem, let us go to the house of God, Elokei Yaakov, the house of the God of Jacob, V'yorim midarcho v'nilcho barcho tovim, we will go in his ways, because from Zion will come out the Torah, and the word of God will come from Jerusalem. And who is this one that's going to teach everybody? That's going to be the Mashiach. He will, everyone will run to him, and he will judge everyone. Right? That says in the prophecy. Also, Isaiah continues. Also in Micha, prophet Micha. Even since in these days, Machlitim, since says the Rebbe, now all of the nations in the world are deciding and they are announcing that they are going to start to limit and eventually to negate all of weapons of war. And they are now, instead, they're going to redirect that money to improve the economy of those countries and to the whole entire world. So therefore, that's the whole idea of plowshares, making plows from swords, breaking all the weapons of war to make from them weapons of working on the ground. This is a clear sign that we are beginning to have this peace. I don't know if there was ever such a thing in the whole world. I mean, there were times when one nation, like one Rome conquered the world and Greece conquered the world, but no one did what they wanted to. They were everyone was they were forced. Here we're talking about everyone of their own free will. The leaders of the nations were actually declaring that there is such a thing as peace, and we want to have peace, and we want to direct our energies into benefiting the world. Okay, true, it was only temporary, and it didn't last that long, but it doesn't make any difference. That was the beginning, and it'll come back. Like sometimes people make a diet, right? A person is overeating, or he smokes too much, or whatever, and he makes a decision that he's not going to smoke anymore, or drink anymore, or whatever it is, overeat anymore. He's not going to do those things anymore. And he goes into it, and he fails. But at least he made the decision, and he started. He got his foot into the door. He knows that there is such a thing. He didn't give up. Some says the Rebbe, since we're now in the highest times of the coming of the Mashiach, behold this, the Mashiach is here, so we can see already the beginning of the Mashiach in the world. The Iron Curtain fell, Jews were leaving Russia, Jews were going back into Russia. And they were going back into Russia to visit their families, to make homes. The people, they felt better in Russia than they felt in America and Israel. They could go as what they wanted to. It was an amazing thing, right? Saddam Hussein, he attacked Israel, and there was amazing miracles. He shot all these missiles. This was right then, right before that. he shot all these like 40 missiles and they knocked down whole buildings and nobody was hurt. Right? And all the Arabs were against the Palestinians and the Palestinians ran away. They left Israel. Saddam Hussein made war against all the other Arab nations. So we see that such a thing is possible. It broke the ice. It says that's the whole idea of the effect of the Moshiach in the world. Now the Moshiach is the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Rebbe, we're going to see, the Rebbe's going to say. And the Rebbe said he's just a branch of him. He's just the representative. He's just carrying on the previous Rebbe's work. He's like a substitute Mashiach. V'shafat bein hagoyim v'hochiach la'amim rabim, and he said that's what it says, that the Mashiach will judge being the nations, and then after that, this is the quote from Isaiah, and then they'll knock all of their swords into plows. That means that God gave put in the hearts of all of these leaders of the world. Leiv malachim v'sarim b'yad Hashem. It's in the heart of the leaders is in the hand of God, and they all decided together that they are going to limit and eventually abolish weapons of war. This is the reason that this was especially now. Why? What's especially now? Because now, says the Rebbe, the Mashiach is really doing his work. Because of the connection that has to the future redemption by means of Mashiach Tzidkenu. Now, what's the Rebbe going to say? First of all, we see that the United Nations building is in the same city that the previous Rebbe decided to make his dwelling in 770 in New York, right? And also the time, which is the time that's right around the time of the passing away of the previous Rebbe. That same date, around that same date, was it? And also the building of 770, which is Beit Rabbeinu Shabbabavel, but we're going to have to do all this, God willing, tomorrow. Let's just do the Yom Yom for today. One moment. Here it is. It is the duty of a Hasidic wives and daughters to stand on the front lines of every activity dedicated to strengthening religion and Judaism in general. This is not the Rebbe is saying, my Hasidim are not only the men. Women also have to go out. They have to spread Judaism, especially concerning family purity. Family purity. That they should organize a society of Hasidic daughters to reinforce all the Hasidic practices, concerning also education of the children, as prevalent from time to time immemorial in Hasidic homes. Very important that the girls should be educated in Torah as well. And also that the women should know the laws of family purity, the laws of mikvah, what time to go to the mikvah, etc. With God's help, tomorrow we'll meet again. Today, 3:00. Hope to see everybody. We're learning Parshat Mishpatim, 53 laws. Today we'll go over some of the laws.